Welcome to Paul or Nothing, the place to get all of your Paul all of the time. Join me, your host Sam Wiles, as we discover the history, the music, and the man behind it all, Paul McCartney. To get in contact with the show, email us at paulmccartneypod@gmail.com. Hello, goodbye, hi, and hey, and welcome to another episode of Paul or Nothing, the place to get all of your Paul all of the time. I am, of course, your host Sam Wiles, and today we've got a very special episode indeed. Oh, he always says that, doesn't he? I know I always say that, but in the rare case that you don't think this show is all that special, then hey, you cannot argue that this episode isn't going to be unique. I wanted to do something a little bit different, folks, and fortunately I was presented that very opportunity with the Beatles being nominated for several Grammy Awards this year, aka the 2025 Grammy Awards, which covers, ironically enough, the 2024 period. And we all know what little song the Beatles released to much fanfare, praise and acclaim in 2024, don't we? Well, I hope you do. I hope you were keeping up. Despite having been broken up for the best part of 60 years, the Fab Four continue to gain nominations in America's most prestigious, I say that with quotation marks, musical award, or service industry award if you really want to get cynical about it. Yes, the Beatles for the 2025 Grammy nominations are up for Best Pop Record and Best Rock Record. I'll get into what both of those mean in due time, but how exciting is that, folks? How exciting is it that after all of this time, our four lads from Liverpool are still able to both influence the culture, dominate it in small targeted bursts, and hey, even be credited for it. Now, obviously, this is going to be an episode where we don't spend most of the time talking about the Beatles, shock horror. This is mostly going to be a podcast about modern music. Don't worry, folks, we're going to be talking about modern rock music first, so there's still going to be a latent interest for most of you, I hope. Oh gosh, I hope I really don't alienate most of you here today, folks. Here today. Basically, what we're going to be doing is me and my wonderful guest, Max Comeau, the excellent singer-songwriter, are going to be discussing the best rock record of the year. So we're going to be talking about all of the nominees, not just the Beatles, and we're going to be giving our thoughts therein. Nothing too complicated, but definitely something a little newer, a little different when it comes to the average Beatle podcast. Talking about modern music is definitely not on the schedule all that often, so I hope you enjoy this one. I hope you've heard the songs involved. If you haven't, pause this now and go and check out the innumerable playlists that have been made already. But yeah, please join me and my guest Max as we discuss the Beatles versus the Grammys 2025 Part 1. Best Rock Record. Let's go! And now everyone, we are in the live portion of the show, which can mean it's only time for me to bring on today's guest. Although I'm reminded a lot of the troubled production of Abbey Road and Let It Be here. So me and have already done our Let It Be, but production errors and stalls and copyright issues have delayed our two-parter that we did a while back for ages. So we're coming back to do Abbey Road. We're going to do it one more time for the lads, the way we used to do it. Everyone, I'm kindly joined today by an excellent songwriter, a brilliant Beatles scholar, and just a really fun guy to have a chat with. Everyone, please welcome back to the show, or welcome to the show for the first time, depending on your ordering, Max Comeau. Max, welcome back, brother.
Thank you so much for having me. And this is a very, very fun topic that I'm looking forward to diving into. So I couldn't be more pleased.
Pleasure is all mine. And speaking of the topic, I just want to talk about something that all the other podcasts probably wouldn't be touching. Modern music is the kind of antithesis of the Beatle fandom in many ways. I don't think Ken Michaels or Robert Rodriguez know their Sabrina Carpenters from their Chapel Roans. And up until about 2 weeks ago, I didn't either.
Possible.
So, yeah. Let's get the crap out the way. How do Canadians view the Grammys?
That's actually a really good question. I think I think we view it as a possible television option for the evening. I don't think people take it very seriously. For me personally,
Hmm.
it is just every year for the last about 20 years, because I haven't cared about new music, new pop music for my whole life. But let's say for the last at least 20 years, for me, the Grammys have been just a great opportunity to look at the nominees, try and listen to as many of the nominees as I can. But will I be watching on Grammy night? There's a good chance I won't be. There's a good chance I'll be waiting for the next day and I'll be
Hmm.
watching the highlights and I'll be looking at who won in the whatever 10 or 12 categories that I happen to care about, more or less.
That is exactly how I view the Oscars and most team sports, to be fair. Just see the results the next day, you know?
I mean, but to tell you the truth, it's exactly how I see the Oscars as well. I used to really care about the Oscars when I was a teenager. I
Hmm.
was passionate about film, and I'd watch the Oscars. I'd even record them on VHS. The
Wow.
'94 to about '97 Oscars, I know them like the back of my hand, which is kind of silly. Now I don't watch them. I'm always curious to see the nominees because just like with the Grammys, I think about 90% of the stuff that's nominated is worthwhile. Doesn't mean it's going to be your cup of tea. Doesn't mean you're going to, be in love with everything you're exposed to. But I think it's a great excuse to say, oh, who are idols? I don't think I know these guys. Okay, let me
Hmm.
listen to them. Oh, okay, that's interesting. So to me, they're just a really good wake up call as to, hey, if you don't know about this song or this movie, in the case of the Oscars, then just check it out. Doesn't mean it'll, blow your mind, but check it out.
So, growing up as a Brit born in 1992, of course, all of my cultural references come from The Simpsons. And they do not treat the Grammys very well, particularly in the Beatles episode with the B sharps. Like Homer, like he's like using them well as like a door stop, and like he chucks one over his
Right,
shoulder and stuff.
right.
I'm guessing that stereotype comes from the fact that, rather like the Oscars again, the Grammys have the big four, and the big four: best recording, best new artist, best song, best album. Those are really best film, best
Yeah,
director, best actor, best actress, the ones that people
yeah,
actually care about.
right.
And the Grammys do have a lot of categories. They have a lot of extraneous ones, a lot of ones that seem to cross over. But having done research for this, I do like that there's an award for the performer, an award for the production team, and then an award for the piece itself.
Yes,
It creates this really nice dynamic whereby producers and production teams don't get pushed back, and you get the rising stars like Andrew Watt and all that kind of thing. And the Oscars really don't try to ever claim that people give a shit about best sound mixing. It's just, oh, James Cameron's doing a sci-fi film, or Chris Nolan's doing a sci-fi film. Give him all the sound and editing awards. Let's see what Meryl Streep's up to.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. Yes.
Yeah. But I was actually quite surprised, really, because we're going to be focusing on Best New Rock Record today, which is
Yes.
fun because we actually still get to kind of talk about the genre that this podcast is founded on, even though Paul is pop rock at best. But I'm a natural cynic. I thought, oh God, this is just going to be the most commercial tit tat ever. But just in terms
Right.
of broad strokes, as a way to kind of gauge, the year of rock 2025,
Yeah.
I'm
Hmm.
actually pretty impressed by the selections. Would you agree?
I'm impressed with them also. I have to say, I mean, first of all, I think it's fascinating that both Pearl Jam and Green Day are here. I mean, this is a band that these are two bands that 30 years from now, exactly, 1994, both of them were dominant. Pearl Jam had Vitalogy and Green Day had Dookie,
Mm-hmm.
which are two seminal, major 90s albums that got millions of kids to pick up an electric guitar for the
Mm-hmm.
first time. The same way millions of kids picked up an electric guitar for the first time back in 1964 when the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan. I'm not necessarily comparing the impact of Green
Mm-hmm.
Day and Pearl Jam to the Beatles. I'm not. But I'm saying for a generation, these are
Mm-hmm.
two huge bands. And the fact that they're still out there and they're still making worthwhile music, we're going to get into the details of it. But personally, I think the Pearl Jam nomination in this category, I think that's a really solid recording. And I'm into it. I've enjoyed listening to it a lot this week. The Green Day song, I feel, is a little bit color by numbers Green Day, but I'm not
we'll
hating
get to
on
that.
it.
We'll get to that. Don't
Get
you
into
worry.
the details for sure. But I do find that interesting. And then we'll deep dive into St. Vincent. I love that you're a fan of hers. I mean, I don't want to spoiler alert. I think she's the strongest contender out of these six, to be totally honest.
She's also the darling as well. Like, she's just got
she is the
Grammys up
darling.
her arse.
She is the darling, and you know what? She's one of those darlings where I really do not object because she's pushing the envelope and she's doing really interesting things. Mm-hmm. So I'm all for it. And then Idols, I have to admit, I did not know Idols until about 3 weeks ago when I saw these nominations pop up and went, okay, I'm going to take a listen. And as soon as I saw the album cover, I did think to myself, oh, but you've seen this on like Pitchfork and Up Rocks and Rolling Stone.
Q Magazine, yeah.
So I was like, okay, yes. I haven't spent very much time actually checking them out, but now I will. And to me, that is the beauty of the Grammys. Of course, I gave it an extra effort because you invited me on, but I was already on these because to me, it's fun to just dive in. I mean, if you're a music lover, why not give it a shot and not approach it with this idea that I know good music. The Grammys don't know good music. Don't approach it that way. Just approach it like, hey, I'm going to give this a try. And I have to say, I was, as you just said, very pleasantly surprised.
I mean, across the board, I'm really bad at discovering new music, fundamentally. And I'll get to another point shortly because it ties it back. But I was really happy to have this as an objective. It's a thing to do. I'm going to listen to the new Grammy songs. And it's far more achievable objective than just trying to always be up to date constantly. Mm-hmm. Who's the lead singer of Black Flag? He listens to like a new album every day, and he listens. Whatever his name is. I'm so sorry, Black Flag fans out there. I feel like I'll write it now. Hello, this is Editor Sam speaking. The name I was trying to think of was Henry Rollins. Henry Rollins is the lead singer of Black Flag. But it was nice just to kind of have a context to listen to all of this.
Yes.
I think it made me more open than I would have been if I'd just like discovered these songs just on the radio. Because and you end up switching stations if you don't like it immediately. I mean, this is a Paul McCartney podcast, and most Paul McCartney songs are growers and not showers. And I feel like a lot of the Grammys this year have been growers and not showers. I didn't particularly like most of these the first time I heard them, but then I returned to like, actually, I do like that bit. Or that part of that song actually is very fun, especially in the pop world as well. I mean, we can quickly just talk about best pop record as well because I'm going to be covering that with a couple of other guests tomorrow. But as someone who really doesn't really like pop music at all, or I felt all of the newer artists were really very interesting, and all of the legacy artists, if you can say modern pop has legacy artists like Billie Eilish and Taylor Swift, were quite disappointing. And I see the exact opposite on the rock spectrum, where the newer acts I wasn't particularly interested in, but these legacy acts that are coming back and still showing that they can play with the kids was really exciting for me, especially because my cultural frame of reference kind of ended exactly 15 years ago. Taylor Swift's Red and 1984, like that's when I listened to Taylor Swift 15 years ago. Black Keys, El Camino and Brothers 15 years ago.
Absolutely.
The two best Kendrick Lamar albums 15 years ago.
Right.
The only one that's older than that would probably be American Idiot, because that's 20 years old now, 21 years old.
Yeah, 2003 or 2004 actually. Yeah.
Okay, so that's 20 years old, but it's funny to see exactly where my brain shut off. It's like, I went to university, I discovered all these new bands, and then I started a Paul McCartney podcast, and then I stopped listening to new music altogether. So it's been fun to kind of be validated in that a lot of my favorite bands and artists are still my favorite bands and artists. They're still producing really good music, and that really is exciting for me. You know what, Max? the most popular phrase of this year's obviously been Nepo baby, but the other one I see all the time is industry plant. Now, as someone who is a writing and recording artist in your own right, is there such thing as an industry plant, or is it just people who have management contracts and people who don't?
I think there probably is such a thing as an industry plant. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think, any industry tries to push what they think is the way that things should go. I think, to draw a parallel with the Beatles, I think Decca didn't want to sign the Beatles because they felt that the narrative was not going to guitar bands, guitar groups. And so I do think there are industry plants, and I do think that the industry does sort of decide, okay, well, right now it's the era of Taylor Swift, so let's
Olivia Rodrigo
absolutely
was
push
pushed so massively
yes,
last year. Yeah.
absolutely. And so they're always looking for who's that next one that's going to fit this little box that we've created. So yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that. But I also think that, and maybe this is the optimist in me, but I do think that artists and songs and albums do break through. I think that we do pay attention to something that's being brought to the table that's really interesting. And I do believe that, yes, there will always probably be industry plants, and the industry will try and manipulate the narrative and what's popular and what's not. But I think a lot of people do break through and do end up finding a niche. Look at Jacob Collier. He's like, I don't love everything he does, but he's clearly a musician first and foremost. He's the kind of guy that'll have 8 different movements in one song, and will have like a choir, and he'll have a full symphony orchestra, and then whoops, he'll drop everything and he'll use auto-tune on this part. He's a creator. And somehow, even though I don't find he fits any narrative or any, he's nominated for a few Grammys this year, and he's broken through, and he has a niche audience that thinks he's the second coming. So I do think that it is possible to break through when you have something slightly different, original, and that, if you manage to build a fan base, people will pay attention.
I mean, my heart goes and breaks for both Khruangbin and Sabrina Carpenter. They're both nominated for Best New Artist, and they've both been going for over a decade at this point.
Yes, I've been listening to Khruangbin since 2017 because I saw them open for Leon Bridges, who's an artist I absolutely love. And when I saw them open for Leon Bridges, of course, I had no idea who these people were. But I remember thinking to myself, holy shit, these are musicians. And then I kind of forgot about them. And then when their 2019 album came out, which there's a song on there called You and Me. And I forget the name of the album, but that album really grabbed me, and I've been a fan since. And then, they got that participation on the McCartney 3 Imagined.
That's how I discovered them, yeah.
Well, there you go. And so they've been on the radar. And yes, when I saw them in Best New Artist, I was floored. I was like, "Are you serious?" Like, it's been years.
So it's Best Breakthrough Artist is the actual award, isn't it? Yeah.
That's exactly what I've been telling people. It's that they've broken through, and somehow now they're on the radar. But I'll be honest with you, Sam, I thought they were on the radar since at least 2020 or thereabouts. So I was a bit surprised by that nomination, absolutely. And I guess the same with Sabrina Carpenter, but I have to admit I was a bit late at the game with her. I love Espresso, though. I think it's a great pop single. Is it my song of the year? No, but I think it's a great pop record. I enjoy it.
I do find it hard to relate to songs where the whole premise is just I'm young, tiny, and hot. I'm none of those things, so I just struggle to relate to it.
Indeed.
Now we are here to talk about Best Rock Record, which means we're going to be mostly talking about recording, production, instrumentation. However, you mentioned a word that is very important, both for the Grammys and the Oscars, and that's a good narrative. Now. You've got, Colin Firth. He totally should have got the Oscar for A Single Man with Julianne Moore the year before. Yes. But that's nowhere near the same amount of story and craftsmanship, almost like a Vince McMahon level of storytelling
Hmm.
as the King's Speech. That's
Right,
that's
right, right.
that's an Oscar. Leo should have
Yes,
won for The Wolf of Wall Street, but that's not a narrative. The Revenant is a narrative. Like, oh,
right,
he had to wake up at golden hour and he really ate a fish
right.
and
Yes,
that
I
kind of
hear
thing.
you.
Does every rock record this year have a good narrative behind it, or are there clearly some outliers that are really going to help them out, do you think?
That's an excellent question. I don't know that the Black Keys particularly have a narrative. I mean, they've been
Oh,
a
I'm gonna,
consistent. Well, okay,
yeah.
you may shed some light on it.
Hmm.
I think they've just been sort of consistently good. It's not always memorable, but I find they've
Yeah,
always been pretty consistently good. So to me, to see them on there is sort of like,
yeah.
all right, like I don't find it exciting that they're there. It's a nice song. It's a contender, but it's certainly not my vote. But yeah, and also with Saint Vincent, I don't know that there is a narrative there either, but maybe you'll give me
Outside of
one.
just being a Grammy artist, basically, yeah.
Yes, outside of just being a Grammy artist that has been
She's a Meryl Streep.
consistently
She's a Meryl
interesting.
Streep, you know.
She is. She's a young,
Just
early
give it a.
stages. Yeah, she's an early stages Meryl Streep. I totally hear you.
Oh my gosh. Although I would love just to see Annie Clark do a movie where she goes, "Dingo ate my baby." I think that'd just be really fun. Going back to recordings, though, obviously we do exist in a world now where computers give us such an edge over analog recordings. We've all seen that clip of Billie Eilish where she shows the audio track for one of her songs,
Yes.
and there's
Hmm.
800 cuts and edits. And I was having
Yes.
a big argument with one of my friends last night. I came down on the side of, well, then it's just Sergeant Pepper. Then it can't be done live in the kind of purest sense. It can't be
Hmm.
done. And he argued that, well, no, it's just taking the best elements of takes that she did do, just not all at once. I'm very cynical about that, and I did see that a lot. Like the pop records are very clean, they're very crisp, they are flawless MP3 files. Where I feel like some of the rock tracks we're about to talk to are a little bit grimier, a little bit grittier, and I'm just
That's a
glad
good
that
point.
the Grammys haven't shied away from a bit of edge. I do feel like there's actually a bit of edge here.
There is a bit of edge. And the one thing I do want to say about what you just said is that's the great thing about, as you mentioned at the top of our conversation, the Grammys do nuance the idea of the record
Mm-hmm.
and the song. So, and I do think that the record is the craftsmanship, the craft that goes into it. So I totally understand that it might bug people that there are 800 different little cuts in a Billie Eilish recorded performance, but they're
It
crafting a
takes skill though.
record.
Yeah, yeah.
It really takes skills. It takes massive skills. And it is crafting a record. And the beautiful thing with somebody like Billie Eilish is she can go out and do a completely stripped back, naked performance where
Mm,
Phineas is just accompanying her on acoustic guitar, and all she has is a mic and no effect other than maybe,
mm,
reverb or whatever. But I'm talking minimal effects, and she can sing the songs and do beautifully. But when she's crafting a record, yeah, she wants everything to be perfect. She liked that breath a little bit more. She liked that
mm.
syllable a little bit better. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's crafting a record in the end. And some people don't view record making as that. Some people view it more as a no, it's live off the floor. And, like
If
Bob
it's not
Dylan,
please
not
please me, it's not. You have to record it in a
right.
day with a bad throat.
But that's all a question of perspective, like the people that have worked with Bob Dylan, especially in the 70s, were always complaining that he was wearing a jean jacket and they could hear the buttons from his jean jacket, clicking as he was strumming and sometimes hitting the guitar. And you can hear that on Blood on the Tracks and albums from that era. And it's like he didn't care because it was like, well, no, it's a performance, and we're not making perfection here. We're capturing a moment, we're capturing a performance. So there's two schools of thought, but I think they're both right. I don't think one is absolutely correct and one is absolutely wrong. They're both correct. It's like it's your approach. Maybe someday Billy will make a live off the floor album where it'll be really naked and it'll just be an acoustic piano and acoustic guitar and you know, I mean it could they could have a full band also, but what I'm saying is for now she likes to craft her records and that's her thing and all the power to her.
Although, if she does do a live stripped back album, I hope she gets a bassist where he does a cover of Ain't No Sunshine just to rip off Paul in a nice little
Right.
subtle
Yes.
way. Let's dive right in. Starting off rather delightfully, we have a name that not only do I recognize, Max, but it's one that I respect, love, worship, and even have a little bit of a crush on. With her new single, Broken Man, this is St. Vincent.
On the street, I'm a king-size killer. I can make your kingdom come. On my feet, I'm an earthquake shaking. So open up, my little one. Hey, what are you looking at? Who the hell?
Okay, so I'm not making a big deal about this, but there was a lovely 4 or 5 year point, Max, where she was just mine. No one in my friendship group knew who St. Vincent was. I discovered her through the Spotify algorithm. Digital Witness from her self-titled 2014 album came
Yes.
and
Yes.
I was hook, line, and sinker. And like that whole album is just fucking phenomenal. Saint Johnny, Birth in Reverse. Like there's so many good tracks on that. And I was a little bit annoyed that it turns out, oh no, she's actually one of the most popular artists in the world. She co-wrote one of Taylor Swift's biggest songs ever. She produces for other people. She does this, she does that. I'm completely in awe of her. She's one of the most gorgeous people on the planet. She's like in my top 5 girls who probably don't like boys, who I'm still in love with. But I'm just obsessed with St. Vincent. I have all of her records on vinyl. I never support contemporary acts who could actually use my money. I only give them to old dinosaurs who are already billionaires. But the long and the short is I'm actually a contemporary St. Vincent fan. And so seeing her was exciting.
Yeah.
I already knew about this song before the nomination. The single came out early this year. It's absolutely phenomenal.
It is absolutely phenomenal.
As I mentioned earlier, she's no stranger to the Grammys. She's probably not even fussed if she wins this one, to be honest. She already won for the self-titled album, for Mass Seduction, and then she won another one for Daddy's Home last year or the year before.
Right.
As well. Max, can you be into the alt-rock scene without being a St. Vincent fan these days?
I don't think you can be. I think she's really, she's at the top of the art form. She's absolutely fantastic. I've known of her since I think it's her second album, the Actor album. I don't even remember how I found out about it. I think probably through one of the music publications that I read, maybe in Mojo or Uncut. And the review was so stellar that I was like, okay, I'll make an effort and I'll listen. And I absolutely loved that album. So I've been a fan since. And then she did that album with David Byrne, and I'm a huge David Byrne fan.
She did More Perfect.
So,
She did a fucking David Byrne album. She's on a Paul McCartney album. The synthesis, and like, it's almost like her career is an algorithm targeted at me personally.
right.
Go up my
she's
alley.
a player. She's a solid guitar player. She's very
Name
creative.
one better contemporary guitarist who's not a legacy act right now. I can't think of one.
It's a tough one. Maybe Dan Auerbach.
Maybe not like in like technical math rock ability, but just to come up with riffs.
Yes. No. She's
the riff of this track is insane.
It really is. And then you have Dave Grohl on the drums, and you couldn't get much better than that. Yeah. It's odd because I thought Flea was going to get the nomination. The song Flea. I'm not talking about the song. I thought Flea would probably be Rock Performance of the Year because that track was actually the one that grabbed me the most off the most recent album. But Broken Man is fantastic. And it's from the intro, you know that you're in for something original and something just a bit different. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's killer. And I honestly, it is my vote in this category. Now, I adore the Beatles and I would love to see them win, but I think Broken Man is really something else. Really something
I'm
else.
tempted to
And it's
say the
not just
exact
a St.
same.
Vincent thing. Even if I didn't know who St. Vincent was and this was my introduction to her, I think this is a spectacular piece of music. And I think it really stands out and has a distinct quality about it that I really love and admire.
One of the best things about St. Vincent is that she's constantly changing personas, styles, genres from album to
Yes.
album. So if
Yes.
you're like me and you did not vibe with the kind of sleazy 70s chic of Daddy's Home, especially I did not like the live set list and the R&B-ness of it. I want to see St. Vincent rock hard. And then she comes back with this album and again, the algorithm pointing towards me, this is exactly what I wanted from a St. Vincent record.
Right.
It's got the kind of scope of something like Actor, but there's also like really intimate moments like on Marry Me, but then you've just got the kind of classic rock from like Mass Seduction and the self-titled album.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out it's self-produced. So I've only got hopes for the future. I really do. If this is what she can do without someone else interfering, then yeah, I'm down with that.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely. And you can tell from watching footage of her or seeing her in interviews, you can tell that she really loves it. You know, she's not going through the motions or she's not, I mean, she's passionate about it. Watching her, I think there was a clip that she released online where she's reacting to Dave Grohl's drumming on, and I think it was Fleet. But you can tell that she's completely excited and she really loves it. She loves the craft of it and loves the creation of it. So, yeah, I mean, she's easy to love. And kudos to her. This is a great song and a great record of a song.
Speaking of the record, it's clear why Flea wasn't picked. I think there's lots of ups and downs in this song. There's peaks and troughs. There's quiet moments. There's loud moments. There's a lot of layering going on. This is definitely not a song to listen to with one earphone because you're missing out on so much.
Right.
That's another reason why I find it to be quite Beatlesque in that sense as well. Max, I always have this whereby the songs I like, I end up speaking about less and giving less airtime to. So I always try and drag out a good positive review because it's very easy to go, I like it, and then
right.
What more can you say? But I think it's clear why the Academy would pick this one. The Grammy, sorry. I see why they would pick this one. I really do. And whilst not giving the game away totally yet, I am inclined to agree with you. I think not only is it the right move, it's probably the done deal at this point. I mean, I don't want to say it's like, there's not enough female rockers, so, Annie Clark always gets it every year. I think if there were three other, if Phoebe Bridgers was in here with the kind of hard rock record, I think it would still end up being Annie Clark, St. Vincent at the end of the day, because she's just.
Or what about that band? Wet? Do you know Wet Leg? I'm sure you do.
Ooh.
Yeah, no, They're like a trio of rock girls, and they have this song called Chaise Longue or Chaise Lounge, or however you want to pronounce it. If you haven't heard it,
to it now. Oh wow. Okay.
I promise you're gonna love them. But you're right. There aren't very many ladies in the rock world that are really distinguishing themselves.
We do seem to we've lost the kind of middle-aged female rocker. We don't have a Marianne Faithfull. We don't have a Joni Mitchell anymore. So hopefully in 10 years, St. Vincent is still relevant enough to kind of be the eldest female statesman of rock that's really missing from the scene right now.
Right.
Because pop's got Madonna. You know what I mean? You could just look at Madonna and go, done.
I mean, rock has. I mean, I'm a fan, so of course I'll name her. But rock has Stevie Nicks, but even Stevie Nicks has a very pop approach and pop flavor to her. So even though she's surrounded by guitarists and a rock approach, and some of her biggest hits are rock songs, still, there's a very pop inclination to it. So yeah, I hear you. You make a good point.
Yeah, where are the Pretenders? Where's Patti Smith?
True.
Where have they all gone?
Yeah.
Pressing on, and we're going to go to an entry that made me go, they're still releasing music? This is Dark Matter by Pearl Jam.
Feel the light from my eyes, in the blood from my heart. When all this dark matter, take the breath from my chest, like the thousand of mine. Well,
Yeah, Max, going back to uni, because it's the only frame of reference I have, really. I had a flatmate called Chris, and he was a huge Pearl Jam fan, and so whilst I only really know 10 and Versus, the first two, the one before Vitology, when they kind of really broke through, I wouldn't call myself a fan, but I would say I'm probably in the top 10 people in the world that can identify Pearl Jam through a brick wall, because I just heard them blasting in my flatmate's bedroom every day.
Right.
And,
right.
That kind of, it would just come through every day and wake me up.
And
at
I
8
mean,
o'clock sharp.
And how many bands came out with singers that were totally doing an Eddie Vedder impression? I mean, Creed is the first one that comes to mind, but there are countless others that sort of like, whoa, 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 kind of vocals. I mean, way too many of those, and most of them completely disposable. No offense to all.
But same with the Green Day ripoffs as well. Where are they?
Oh yes, absolutely. There are a ton of Green Day ripoff bands. Hell yeah, absolutely. I really like this Pearl Jam song, and I've never been a huge Pearl Jam fan. They've always been a band where a couple of songs here and there will peek through, and I'll be exposed to them, and I'll like them. But I had a bass player that I collaborated with for about 10 years who adored Pearl Jam. So same as you, I had someone in my life that was so into them that I was inevitably exposed to them quite a bit. I think they're a solid band, and I think Eddie Vedder is, we make fun of his voice, but I think he's a great rock singer and a great performer. Totally iconic. And this song, I find, doesn't sound like a paint by numbers. I find there's a real vitality to this song. The guitar riff kind of reminds me of Dazed and Confused by Led Zeppelin.
Okay.
There's a certain aspect of it that reminds me of that, but it doesn't feel either like it's like they're ripping off or like they're trying to be something they're not. I really like this song, and I haven't spent a whole lot of time with that full album, but I have spent a lot of time with this song, and I think it's fantastic. I think it's a really solid contender, and I would probably, I don't know, like I can't wait to get into Now and Then, because when we get to Now and Then, that'll be a whole thing onto itself. But I mean, Dark Matter, but I think Dark Matter might be my second favorite here. Quite possibly. I mean, maybe third, but anyway, I do like it. I really, every time it came on this week, I was like, yeah, I like this. I really like it. I think it's vital. And it's fascinating to me because Eddie Vedder just a couple of weeks ago released a solo single. So clearly the guy is still loving it because he doesn't need to do any of this. He probably could have retired in the late 90s and, been fine, more than fine. So clearly the guy still loves it and he's still passionate about it. So it doesn't feel like a cash grab or a nostalgia act, even though I guess for all intents and purposes they are. But I mean, they're still making worthwhile music. So I respect that. I really respect that.
It would be hard
not that they need my approval, but nonetheless, they have it.
Oh, well, at least Max likes my songs. Yeah, Seriously, though, I suffered with this one pretty much due to my lack of wider knowledge of Pearl Jam. I feel like if I was a bigger Pearl Jam fan, I'd probably like this a lot more. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, Eddie has been memeified through social media seemingly in the last year. Like, along with Creed, maybe it's because the Creed meme took off this year as well. But
Right.
I see him so much on like Instagram and this and that, and every other day I see someone posting the clip of him climbing the scaffolding to get his mic, and he sings into the mic, and I'm like, he could have just died then and there, Eddie Vedder in front of 100,000 people. How rock and roll is that?
Yeah,
fucked. Like Richie Valens, you know what I mean?
I mean, people love him for that persona. Love him. Women love him, and men love him because they wish that they could be that cool and that like rock god.
He's a very masculine idol in that sense. Women want
very
him,
much
men
so.
want to be him 100%.
Yes, 100%.
The thing is, I felt that this was a little more paint by numbers than you, but that's again due to my lack of experience with the band. Like, they may have this whole middle section of their career that I have no idea about, where they went like psychedelic or something. And within the context of knowing their whole discography, maybe this song says something else.
Right.
Like when Denny Lane left the Moody Blues, and then they became a completely different band or something like that.
Right.
I enjoy Pearl Jam in the context of not knowing the discography and then watching a whole live concert on YouTube. Not necessarily albums or even greatest hits. I think they are a live act, and knowing that they went toe to toe with Ticketmaster in the 90s before you could have a social media revolution to back you up is really cool.
Yeah.
Going back to the Oscars, there are certain films that are always more interesting to talk about than for me to listen to. Like, I think Joker 2 might be one of the best movies to write an essay about ever. It's a complete piece of shit, but it's very interesting to talk about. And I'm not looking as a piece of shit at all, but I'm just saying I find this song to be more interesting as a conversational piece.
I hear you. Yeah.
It really treads that line, though. I mean, it does sound like classic Pearl Jam, but it doesn't come across as one of those latter era AC/DC albums where it's like, the band is back and the hell, and it's like, oh god, they're doing it.
No, again. It just sounds like it has a certain energy and spark to it that I like. Now, am I going to keep playing this song into next year and the year after? Probably not. But I do, like, when it came on this week, I would always sort of go, oh yeah, I like this one. But yeah, there's something about that guitar that really reminds me of the of Daisy. I don't know why, but I heard that every time. But anyway, I think it's a worthwhile recording.
It's also interesting to know that it was produced by the bloke who did the Hackney Diamonds album with the Rolling Stones last year. So clearly this guy knows how to take a legacy act or a slightly out-of-date act that's slightly past its sell-by date and give it a bit of a zhuzh. And knowing this and knowing how Paul likes to, Greg Kurstin with Adele, I'll borrow you. Yeah. I've got a slight suspicion that if Paul was to ever do another album, it's going to be with this Andrew Watt guy. I really do, especially since Paul was even on the Bite My Head Off track as well.
Yes. I would have liked to have seen Bite My Head Off in this category personally. Because I love
there's not enough room. Yeah. It's either Now and Then or Bite My Head Off.
Right, I guess. But I so love that he went back to that fuzz bass sound, And I also love that he made it a bit forced. I love hearing Mick say, "Go on, Paul, play some bass or that bass or whatever he says."
Paul!
Yeah, every time I sort of cringe, but at the same time I get like a little ping of like pride and joy for Paul.
No, anyway. The cringe in that song is hearing British Mick Jagger. Why you're such a jerk off? It's like, British people can't say. We can't say asshole. We say arsehole. You asshole. Yeah. We can't get away with that.
Yeah.
But Britain, we have bastard. You're not bastard. You're bastard is way more damning. I think you bastard.
Yeah, true. I hear you. I love it.
Up next, and we have the only artist on this who was a new face to me, as we discussed, it was a new face to you as well, Max. This is called Gift Horse. We're going to look it right in the mouth. This is Idols. So, as it turns out, these guys are a British band. They're a little further south than me, so no one's perfect. They've been active since the early 2010s and have been gaining notoriety since their main debut album in 2016. I probably should know these guys because they appeared on that gargantuan Metallica covers album from last year, the Metallica Blacklist. Which also featured McCartney 3 Imagined, alumni, St. Vincent and Phoebe Bridgers as well. Yep. I feel like if you ask St. Vincent to do a cover and she's got the Saturday off, she won't say no.
Right.
You know, there's going to be one of these for Elton John coming out in the next two years, 100%.
Yes.
Or
yeah.
Maybe we'll get Khruangbin back in to do Are You Ready for Love?
Right.
Who knows? But yeah, these guys are on the up and up. They seem to be rising stars in their own right. And I was honestly shocked by how hard, heavy, dirty, in the mud, and kind of not clean. I mean, I mentioned earlier how a lot of the pop tracks are clean. This is like, you could make an argument that this is poorly recorded, but it totally works. It totally works.
And yes, it's by far the dirtiest of these 6 nominations. There's no competition. It's by far the dirtiest, and I find it benefits from that. And I have to say, I'm a huge fan of that watch, my, steed, go, far, that hook. Every time it came on, at first, I mean, I had to go and read the lyrics because I didn't know what he was singing. But from the first time I heard the song, I was like, oh, I like that. That's hooky to me. And there's something about it that's really sort of, I don't know if insidious is the right word, but it feels like it's
there's something bubbling, yeah.
Yeah, and I love that about it. And I was really taken by this song. I love it, and I sort of was a little bit upset at myself for not paying attention to that album earlier on, because I had seen it pop up on, so far, these are the albums that you should be paying attention to. I had seen it pop up on some of those types of articles and playlists, but this is solid. This is really, really solid.
This is one of those awards where it's like, they're clearly not going to win it, but they're going to get nominated in a couple of years for their next thing.
Yes.
And they might
be the next big thing. They might be the next big thing. Who knows? They have, in the rock genre, which according to a lot of people has been dead for a couple of decades now, which I disagree with that. But anyway, I digress. But yes, they do have potential to be the it kids, if they're not already, you know?
Just go back to just a little digression. No one likes being the mainstream, particularly rock and rollers. So I don't know why people are upset that rock doesn't dominate anymore. You know, now you're the cool underground thing, you know.
Yeah.
Like, it's really hard to go see a cheap rap or pop act now. It doesn't exist. But if you want to spend a $5 or $10 and go see a band down at a bar, that's very doable these days. It really is.
Absolutely.
Going back to Gift Horse, though, this really reminded me of a track called Lawman by Girl Band, released a few years ago.
Okay.
And
the name of the group is Girl Band?
I think they've changed it to Gila Band now, but they were called Girl Band at the time. And it also reminds me of a track
name of the song?
It's called Lawman, all one word. Wow. It's just a dirge. And
Yeah. Okay. I will be checking that out because I have to admit I'm not familiar with it.
And then there's another track called Mind Your Own Business by the Delta 5 that kind of had that same beat to it as well. I was just drawn in immediately by that fuzzy bass and drum line. Just like I was like, what the hell is this? This is not what I expect from the Grammys at all. And I think part of my attraction to this song is based in my own biases and towards the Grammys as a whole. So, you know, this is almost like an entry where I kind of go, they're probably all quite cool, actually, these judges and critics and stuff who actually care about this stuff.
And the one thing that I don't know, and this could probably be easily researched, so shame on me for not researching it, but I wonder if they have, because the Oscars do, but do they have different groups of people nominating for each category? Mm-hmm. They must, because the guy or the person that's in the rap industry that only cares about rap and hip hop does not know about Idols and probably doesn't know very much about St. Vincent or Pearl Jam, I would think. So I wonder if they have like, okay, so this is our rock committee and this is our, urban committee and this is our country committee. I bet you they do, because these, as you said, these are nominations that have value to them. Like, you can tell that they know what they're talking about. This is not uninformed stuff, This is like, oh, okay, great. They're not all obvious. Like, yes, Green Day and Pearl Jam are obvious names, and I guess St. Vincent because she's a Grammy favorite.
The Beatles.
But yeah, I'm impressed by these choices. I find they're they're smart.
Bit of a tangent. Their first album, they did a special pressing because his mother was dying during the production, the lead singer, and he actually pressed her ashes into 100 of those albums. Now, Max, is that a marketing gimmick that even Paul McCartney would think is a little gauche?
It reminds me of Kiss putting their own blood into their Marvel comic. They published a comic book in 76 or 77, and as the marketing gimmick, they had the press come and, they extracted blood from them, and you can see Gene Simmons pouring his blood into the red ink and, showing his tongue doing it. It's a pretty famous bit of news footage. But I mean, yeah, I don't know, it reeks of marketing and it's a little cringy. Not a big fan.
Oh, that's so funny. Maybe we'll have like the pink ashes and the blue ashes version and the Coca-Cola green Spotify exclusive and the head of Walmart's ashes exclusive, I mean, bloody hell. That just sounds weird. Just another little tangent. I've never understood the visual dissonance between Kiss's image and the actual music they produce. I've always found it really hard to comprehend. Like, Black Sabbath look like and sound like a band called Black Sabbath, but and then you look at Kiss and it's I wanna rock and roll all night.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, shouldn't you be going people equal shit? People, really heavy big vocals.
I totally hear you. I think their first two albums, especially the second, Hotter Than Hell, with the makeup, their first two albums from 74, I find those two albums have a little bit of that danger and threatening element, but I think they very quickly realized that what they really wanted to do was be the Rolling Stones and the Beatles with a little bit more of a street and dark edge, but really they do fun rock. That's what they are.
It's no more culturally threatening than like screaming Jay Hawkins we're wearing a bone through his nose. You know what I mean?
Right,
it's not
right. Yeah.
Slipknot is what I thought Kiss should have been.
Yes, I totally hear you. And I have a friend who is a huge Slipknot fan who, anytime I draw a parallel between Kiss and Slipknot, he loses it. He's like, no, Kiss were just out to make money. Slipknot, they're geniuses. They're real, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. They both had this idea of we're going to be scary and we're going to, come on. And there are parallels
Kiss is
drawn.
Kiss is the 1989 Batman. He's got touches of darkness, but Slipknot are the Dark Knight,
Yes, that's a great analogy. I love it. And in fact, Kiss even have shades of like 1966 Batman at times, They do. Look at
you just can't get rid of a bomb. Yeah.
There you go. You go.
Come on, let's get to some of the more juicier topics now. Following on, we have an act that is doing everything in its power not to be seen as a legacy act. The lead singer, I thought, was in his 60s. He's only 54, and it's a good, Hollywood extracting blood from young children and, injecting into yourself youth. Billy Joel looks great. This is Green Day and The American Dream is killing me. Bum.
When it's all double talk of conspiracy, the
off the bat, I must say, I quite like this one. Is it the most revolutionary thing on this list? Of course not, and not by a long shot. But in this world of turbulence and uncertainty and doubt and unreliability, I found it to be quite relaxing and comfortable just to see that Green Day was kind of still doing their shtick. And not only that, but it still sounds kind of badass. It still sounds good.
There's a great live band. I mean, you can tell that these guys are a tight-knit power trio and that they can rock together. But I just kind of felt like this could be track 7 on American Idiot, and it wouldn't have been any more shocking in 2004 than it is in 2024. You know what I'm saying? They have a song on this very same album called Dilemma, which actually has a nomination for Rock Song of the Year, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that song is much stronger and much more original and has its own distinct flavor. And I really find The American Dream Is Killing Me just sounds like, and I'm not knocking it because I do like it. I do find it fun. I find it sounds really good. But it does feel a little bit like, what do you expect Green Day to do? This. Yeah. You know? It's a little bit predictable.
It's because it's got an orchestral middle eight. That's literally it. It's because the breakdown, the bridge slows down, and you get that.
Yeah.
Look, I think that is enough to like make a rock song appear to be well produced. I'm not saying this isn't well produced at all, but like it ain't a day in the life, and it ain't Bittersweet Symphony. You know,
right?
You know.
But it has that extra little flavor.
Yeah, and you know.
Yeah.
You are right. This does feel literally like 2003 Green Day. It is 2003 core at its core. And it is nice to see that it still has a little bit of relevancy. I am a little cynical about the subject matter. Like, it almost feels like, well, we probably know Trump's going to get back in, so we'll do a song that in a year is talking about how bad America is, and that will really fit the narrative and help push us. And that's so it's the orchestral bridge and the narrative that is pushing this. I need to go listen to that other song after this as well.
And American Idiot came out, in the post 9/11, George W. Bush, and all that. It does feel a little bit like opportunity, this is a great opportunity for us to do yet another critique of the American way and whatnot. So I mean, even the title made me cringe before I actually listened to it.
It's a terrible title. It's clunky. It's clunky as hell.
It's very clunky.
Look, Max, I'm probably, it always sounds like you're a closet right winger when you say you're a centrist, but British centrist is way different, is way more left than an American centrist. It just is.
Yeah, I hear you.
I hate both sides. I really do. Equal contempt for everyone. And I do feel like there's a real lack of, like, where was Green Day when Biden was in power? You know what I mean? Where was Green Day?
Right.
Do punk bands kind of sit with their arms crossed whilst there's a Democratic or a left-wing or a Labour government?
I can't remember what year this was, and in fact, I'm checking it right now just out of curiosity, but there's a year, it's 2012. Actually, 2012 is, a little over a decade ago. But yeah, in 2012, they had released 3 albums. I mean, they've been really prolific. They haven't stopped. But we don't hear much about them because, for the most part, Green Day's just being Green Day, which there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't think it grabs the attention of casual fans or people like me who admire a lot of their works throughout the years. But, do I stop what I'm doing to listen to the new Green Day album? No, they're not one of those bands for me. Not at all.
They really remind me of Pink Floyd in that they are known for one album and they will only ever be known for one album. But
do you think that's true of Green Day, though? Because I feel like Green Day has Dookie from 94 and they have American Idiot. And I also think the album with Good Riddance, that acoustic song that's used. I also feel not quite as much as the 2 others, but I feel those are some pretty big albums. I don't know if I'd put
There's
them
an
in that
age bias
category.
here. You know, American Idiot was the first album
True.
I ever bought. I physically bought
Right.
with money on a CD, Max. I bought it on a compact disc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And at my open mic night every week, I still play Give Me Novocaine into She's a Rebel, and I swap from an acoustic to an electric, and I feel like a fucking badass. It's awesome. I love that album so much. And I think they are a victim of their own success. Well, no, I'll tell a lie. I was badgering my best friend to listen to these on our way to go play cards last night. We listened to all the nominees, and we had great chat, and I've totally stolen all of his opinions and forwarded them as my own. But something that I will credit him for, he's convinced that the American dream is actually, from the producer's perspective, the dream of Green Day creating another American Idiot, and they are being killed by the fact that they are unable to repeat the success of American Idiot, whether they want to do that or not.
Right.
Because when you see stuff
That's
like 21 Guns, you're like, oh God, this is just a 21st Century Breakdown. This is just
yeah.
Oh, it's just, again, it's not like Venus and Mars where it's like, oh, it is Band on the Run again, but a bit different. 21st Century Breakdown was just a worse American Idiot with 2 good singles on it.
Right.
And I do feel like they are kind of taking the mick out of that ever so slightly, especially in the music video when they're literally portrayed as zombies. So, brainless, brainless, without direction. I think they're kind of poking fun at the fact that, I mean, these guys have probably made more money off the Broadway show, you know what I mean? In the way that Aerosmith made more money from Rock Band. Beyonce makes all of her money from perfumes and stuff. Yeah, I really did enjoy this one. I think it's very simple. It's definitely not going to win. Let's just get that out the way. This is just a nod to say, well done, lads. You can still kind of keep it up. That's pretty much right. And you know what? More power to them, really. More power to them. It's got a good narrative. It's got a good beat. And it's got enough member berries in it. Like, hey, or that's the Greek. And if the bass player isn't standing with his legs completely far apart like that.
Right, yeah.
I need to see all of those specific. Oh, and speaking of the zombie music video, it's the only time where it's been appropriate for Billy Joel to have the makeup around his eyes as well.
Right,
so,
right.
There's definitely a humorous edge to this song. Now, going from commerciality to appeal to nostalgia, we're going to talk about commerciality for its own ungodly sake. Matt, for this second to last entry, we have another band that I am familiar with, and it really is an embarrassment of riches for me to kind of be aware of all of these bands. But let's talk about everyone's favorite middle-aged indie rocker duo, the Black Keys, and their song, Beautiful People, Stay High. Listeners will all know too well. Like I said, my last frame of reference was 15 to 10 years ago. We had El Camino and Brothers, which are 2 seminal works. They were vital.
They really are. They really are.
Brothers beats El Camino out by 10 miles. I really do think El Camino is kind of elevated because of Lonely Boy. Of course, it's their biggest single. Everyone loves.
For me, Gold on the Ceiling and Little Black Submarines are my 2 favorite songs from El Camino.
Unknown Brother from Brothers is it's the best song ever. It makes me cry every time.
It's odd. I'm actually, and I know I'm in the minority here, but I'm actually more of an El Camino guy for some reason. And I was into Black Keys with their first album, 2003, which I forget the title, but it's like Fingers in a Jar of Wax or whatever. It's their first album anyway, or maybe their second, but I think it's their first. But yeah, I had a friend, Joe, who was obsessed with that album, and so I got into them, and that was 2003. I remember that distinctly. So it's their second album. It's called Thick Freakness. Because lest we forget, their first album has an extraordinary cover of She Said on it. So if you have not heard that, if you are a Beatles fan and you have not heard the Black Keys do She Said, prepare to be knocked off your chair. I'm not saying it's better than the original. Nothing could be, but it's an excellent, excellent cover and an exciting one at that. Anyway,
I know what the closing song for this episode is going to be. Folks,
well, there you go. But
there'll be 30 seconds of silence, and then you'll be treated to.
It is genuinely an exciting cover. But I do love the Black Keys, and I love Dan Auerbach's solo material as well. He made that album a few years ago that sounded like a Ram sequel with a song called "Waiting for the Song" or whatever it was called. Anyway, I love these guys. This song to me is not
very exciting. Let him have
exciting.
It, Max. Let him have it.
I mean, I just don't find it very exciting. I don't find it very rock and roll either. I find it sounds like a fun party song, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's room for that. But this is not a Grammy nomination song. I'm sorry. It's very mid. This was the only song out of the 6, because I made myself, of course, a little playlist with just the 6 nominees because I wanted to really fully dive into them before we talked about them today. And this was the only one where I'd kind of go like, all right, so later on I'm going to have to go grocery shopping, maybe pick up, wonder if cucumbers are on sale this week. You know, like I was not bored, but really not very impressed. It's fine. Yeah. It's fine. And if one of my friends' band had written and recorded this, I'd be totally thrilled for them. But the Black Keys have done much better on quite a few occasions throughout the years. And I don't want to take anything away from them, and I want them to continue. There's no hate towards them, but this is not a Grammy nomination as far as I'm concerned.
There should be a second Idols in here, a new band that should just get a bit of exposure. The Black Keys, don't need another Grammy. They don't need any more exposure or any more success.
And actually, you've opened the door for me to say something. They are not a new band. They've been around. They released their first EP and their debut album in 2003. We're going back to 2003 quite a bit today. But Kings of Leon released a very, very good album this year. And they have a single off there, called Mustang, which I don't understand why it's not in here. It should be one of the 6 songs we're talking about, one of the 6 records we're talking about. Their album, Can We Please Have Fun, or Can We Please Make This Fun? I forget the exact title of the album, but that whole Kings of Leon album is excellent. And I was genuinely disappointed that they got absolutely 0 nominations, because the album came out, I think, in February. So it's more than eligible. Like, it's been on the radar. So that surprised me. And I would have put this ahead of Black Keys without hesitation. So that's a contender. And there are quite a few others. I don't understand why this Black Keys song is here. I just don't get it.
Look,
it sounds like that rock song that your girlfriend likes. And I'm not dissing, I'm not being mean, I'm not being misogynistic here, but it sounds like that song that people who don't like rock like because it's sunny and it's fun. And to me, it just brings nothing to the table, really.
I'm going to do a bit of an Ace Ventura intake of breath here. Let's just say right now, Max, that Marilyn Manson, Brian Hugh Warner does not have to worry about this song overtaking his actual song, The Beautiful People, which is still far better than this track. Right. Also, just as a tangent, Marilyn Manson is a pop act. Let's not mistake that. If you look at his chord structures and the way he plays songs, it's very poppy. It really is. And considering that he was like a pop music critic before becoming Marilyn Manson, makes a lot of sense. But yeah, this was the biggest disappointment for me by far. And whilst Green Day, for me, was a recognisably fun throwback, for you, Dark Matter with Pearl Jam, a fun, recognisable throwback, I was like, what is this? I was so kind of baffled by what I was hearing. And at the heart of this is commerce. It's so commercial. It is so radio friendly. But not even that.
Yeah.
It's for an iPhone advert. The first 20 seconds of this song are for an iPhone advert.
Yes. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, absolutely.
Or like Skechers, Crocs, HBO Max, Mitsubishi.
I totally agree with you, and I don't think that's even. I don't even think that's a mean thing. I think it's pretty accurate, very accurate.
Look, I've read interviews of them recently because I had to go down a rabbit hole to justify my own warped opinions. But they've said in recent interviews, look, we want to make the music we want to make, and it's hard when you're a cynic not to hear we want to make music that makes money. Maybe we've got families now. Mate, I want a second house. What's wrong with that? You know,
right?
What's that quote from Michael Caine? I've never seen Jaws fall, but I've seen the mansion that it bought, and it's fantastic. You know, there's nothing wrong.
He built a house for his mother with that. I think. Yeah. I hear you. I hear you, and I think you're. Excuse me. I think you're absolutely correct. I really do. There's nothing wrong with it. It's inoffensive and it's not unpleasant. Like if it comes on the radio, I'm not going to be rushing to change the dial, but I'm not also going to boost the volume and go like, hey, wait, take notice. Isn't this great? I'm not. No, it's not one of those songs.
It's so full of na-na-nas, yeahs and ahs that not only do you not have to pay attention to the lyrics, which I know you weren't either. Ever since Why Do You Ever Phone Me When You're High was released by the Arctic Monkeys, I think the idea of being high in a song has been done to death now. Like, Afro Man did it, Arctic Monkeys have done it, and now let's leave being high for a bit.
I have a whole playlist of high songs on Spotify, which I go back to once in a while. You're entirely correct. There's nothing subversive or exciting or sexy about it. It just kind of sounds like, you're right, like an advert, like a iPhone, or bring back the iPod Shuffle. This will be the jingle for it.
Paul had his own one. You know the classic iPod adverts where it was the silhouette in black with the white earphones. Dance Tonight. This is Dance Tonight. It 100% is. That's just what it is. Yeah. Let's not break any bones. Again, more power to them, but why not just cut the middleman out and make a soundtrack album? If you're so hell-bent on making media for TikToks and Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts, just make a soundtrack album, just like score a film, or start directing ads. Stop wasting my time.
And I find it unfortunate because I do think that there is some worthwhile rock music being made right now. I know that maybe they're a little bit more pop than they are rock, but I was surprised that the Lemon Twigs aren't here. They released one of the year's greatest albums. They're not here. I'm surprised that Vampire Weekend, again, they do have a very pop flavor, but I'm surprised they're nowhere in these nominations. And to see the Black Keys here with a fairly mid song compared to their great or greatest material, I was sort of like really unimpressed with this nomination. Again, not hating on them. Yeah. There's room for this, but not a Grammy nomination worth.
Time for another Oscars analogy. This is like De Niro when he got nominated for Best Actor for The Irishman. It's like, oh, fuck off. It's because he's De Niro and it's because he's Scorsese. That's fine, but you could have also given a nom to a young actor who could have used it.
I could not agree more. And it's fine. De Niro is perfect in The Irishman, but you're right. It's not exciting the way his truly greatest performances are. So same thing with this Black Keys song. I totally agree. We're on the same page, Sam.
I hear people say beautiful. Yes, they do. I could do that for you. Yes. My gosh. Right, Max. Finally, we come to a song that has brought us all together recently.
Yeah.
So big that one nomination's not enough. It's got several nominations this year. This is Now and Then by, you guessed it, The Beatles.
I know it's true. It's all because of you. And if I make it through, it's all because
So, Max, this is a song that I've already spoken about quite a lot on this podcast already. So please take the floor. With this quote-unquote last Beatles song, we've had a year to kind of process it now.
Yes.
How do you feel?
I love it. It moved me. It moved me then. It still moves me now. I'm happy to see it nominated for Record of the Year and Rock Performance Record of the Year, and not Rock Song of the Year. And the nuance I make here is, if your buddy had written Now and Then as a John Lennon-ish piano ballad,
If Sean Lennon wrote it,
you would have said, "Hey, this is really good." But the lyrics are absolutely, they're not John's most inspired lyrics. We attach a lot of meaning and emotion to them because we really want it to be a love letter to his pals, particularly to Paul. Now and Then, I Miss You. And we attach a lot of meaning, a lot of emotions to that because, oh my God, it's John writing.
It's got Providence coming out its eyes. Yeah.
Yes, but it is not a great song, not even by solo John standards, and I don't think John's solo
It's not
standards...
even Oh Yoko.
No, actually, I prefer Oh Yoko in the sense that Oh Yoko is meant to be a fun ditty, and it totally succeeds in being a fun ditty. Now and Then is meant to be a heartbreaking ballad, and it is. But I mean, let's face it, it's not a great song, but I do think it's a great recording. It's brick-walled, it's mixed a little bit too. Everything is loud and prominent. I'm not an audiophile, but I do hear people say that, and I get what they're saying. But I do love it as a record. I love the sound of those acoustic guitars, the sound of that piano. I love Paul's slide solo, even though I find it sounds nothing like a George Harrison slide solo.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But that's another story. I like that he did it. I don't understand why we didn't get more of whatever George did do on the electric guitar. There's parts on the verses, which I think is George. But that's my theory. Is it not? I'm not sure. But I do love it as a record. I think as a record, it's really worthwhile. It's exciting. I'm happy to play it. I'm happy that my friends that aren't obsessed with the Beatles the way I am love it. You know, like most of them really love this more than probably I do, because my expectations are so high and my
commercially it's done
importance I give.
Culturally, commercially, yeah, it's done really well.
Yeah, exactly. So I find it very exciting. And you know what? I don't want Now and Then to win Record of the Year, because I think that would be ludicrous in the year of Sabrina Carpenter and Chappell Roan, or even Beyonce. I think they own 2024.
We haven't talked about Beyonce? Oh my God. No.
We haven't, but honestly, these people, they own this year, you know? The Beatles, super happy that they contributed, and I'm happy that it's a good song and that it's certainly not an embarrassment. I'm proud of the song, but I don't think it's Record of the Year. Could it be Rock Record of the Year, Rock Performance of the Year? That it could be. And it would definitely reek of, we're honoring the legacy and we're giving the Grammy to the Beatles and not to this actual record like we're supposed to be doing. But I'll rejoice. I'll be happy if it wins. But I still think that St. Vincent, Broken Man, is the clear winner out of these six. Maybe Now and Then means more to me, and it does. I'll probably spin Now and Then more often in 10 years than I will Broken Man in 10 years, because it's the Beatles, and they mean everything to me.
Mm-hmm.
But it's up against at least two or three outstanding 2024, 100% 2024 recordings. Those deserve to win. Now and Then should be content with, hey, it's great that we were nominated. And it is great. But that really, to me, that's all it should be, personally. But I will be happy if they win. I just will expect my cynical friends to say, well, yeah, they won because they're the Beatles. And they won't be wrong. If they win, they will win because they're the fucking Beatles. Simple as that. I said it, and mic drop.
This is the last chance for the Grammys to give a shameless award to rich old white men. You know, we've had the Brat Summer. This is the last chance of the vestiges of the toxic masculinity to like say, we're still here. We're going to give it to them because we remember them. Like, yes,
they're billionaires now, but they still deserve to win this.
It is probably the most cynical of the Grammys this year. Even like more so than the Black Keys one. I mean, the Black Keys shouldn't be there. Look, we've spoken a lot about narrative today. Now and Then probably has the best narrative, just out and out. It started out as a Lennon song. It's got anthology. It's come out now. Its narrative has suffered just from its release date, though. It probably would have a better chance if it had come out 6 months ago. It's come out.
I totally agree. It's 2023, and I understand it was like, what was it, November 2nd of 2023?
Yeah, it's October.
So it came out too late.
Yeah.
Right, so it came out too late to be eligible for last year's Grammys, but it would have fared better at last year's Grammys because it was still sort of in the zeitgeist. Now it feels like, oh, remember like a year ago when this was, it feels a little bit like its momentum and its moment has already passed. We're grateful that it's there, and we're grateful that they did it and that Paul went ahead and completed this thing. But come on. I mean, this is the year of St. Vincent way before it is the year of the Beatles. And so it should be. I mean, the Beatles are my life and they're your life too. But come on, if we're talking 21st century, St. Vincent, Beyonce, Taylor Swift, Sabrina Carpenter, Billie Eilish, come on.
Yeah, if there's anything that's going to win that's anything to do with the Beatles this year, it'll be Beyonce's album because that's got a fantastic cover of Yesterday on it. I mean, Blackbird. I feel like... Blackbird. Yeah, you're right.
Yes, and it is a fantastic cover. And thank you for saying that, because I know that some fans just think it's blasphemous. That I'm like, it isn't blasphemous. People have been covering Blackbird since just about 1968, and they will continue to cover it the same way they've covered Yesterday and pretty much the whole Beatles catalog. It is a gorgeous cover, and those three voices.
Paul wants black women singing his songs. End of story.
Of course he does.
End of story.
Look at the trailer for Beatles 64, how much they're pushing that idea that black musicians were fans of the Beatles. And they were. I'm not saying that that's a false narrative. It's the truth. But the Beatles camp rightfully wants you to know that yes, we were inspired by black musicians, but we were also telling black musicians that we were inspired by them, and we're happy if they're covering our music.
It's why John will never forgive Paul, because all of John's songs cannot be covered by big fat black opera singers, and Shirley Bassey cannot cover Imagine.
Julia.
It just doesn't work. Yeah. No, whereas Paul writes these big, like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah. Of course.
Whoa, and like,
and Long and Winding Road, and
a bit of vamping. The proof is in the pudding. If you look at all the artists that have covered Paul songs, anyone who covers a John song is typically going to be straight white man at the end of the day, because that's the music that John put out there. Like, again, not to focus too much, on all of that kind of.
No, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah,
I hear what you're saying.
Paul, Paul would definitely pick Beyonce over Taylor Swift covering one of his new songs. That's just how I feel.
No doubt. And I'm sure
No Doubt would be a good one as well.
Yeah. And I'm sure he loves Taylor Swift. That Rolling Stone photo shoot.
Oh my God, it's the cutest thing ever.
Is the cutest thing ever. And apparently he helped her out of her boots because she was having trouble with her boot laces or whatever, which I love, and I love their dynamic. But yeah, of course he wants Beyonce to cover his stuff. Yeah, he just wants that.
Who doesn't get, like, the whole concept of Beyonce's album is it's a black artist reclaiming a white space in music.
Mm-hmm.
So she's going to sing the whitest male band of all time and their song about black oppression. Like, it could not fit more perfectly. It's not a square peg in a round hole at all. It's ridiculous.
No, and it really, really makes me proud. Like, I know that sounds corny, but it makes me proud. It makes me proud that it's a highlight on the Beyonce album. And I really like the Beyonce album. I don't adore it, but Two Most Wanted, that Miley Cyrus duet, I think is fantastic. I think it's a really good album. And that Blackbird cover is through the roof. It's probably my favorite cover of the song ever. And there have been some stellar covers of Blackbird throughout the years. But that might be my favorite cover ever. The three voices, the use of Paul's acoustic and his foot tapping, the fact that they used all of that original stuff, I think it's superb. Some people call it karaoke. But honestly, if it is karaoke, it's fantastic karaoke, like honorable.
And Beyonce fits that bill of like the music of 15 years ago for me as well. Like, I remember being there when Crazy in Love came out, the music video debuted.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, my mom,
and I still love Crazy in Love.
Oh my God, incredible tune. I mean, all of Sasha Fierce is a phenomenal album as well.
Absolutely. Lemonade has several highlights on it. She has that song with Jack White, which is just fantastic. Don't Hurt Yourself or something like that. But the hate that's thrown Beyonce's way really rubs me the wrong way. It's sort of like people feel like she's not entitled to success. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, how can that? And same thing with Taylor Swift. I find both of them are targets of haters in ways that they just don't deserve to be. I guess they are because they're so damn successful. So inevitably they're going to attract haters. But I hate that. You know, it's, to me, that's just as ridiculous
the
as
comment
haters
section
of the Beatles back in the 60s.
When Ringo was like, Taylor Swift's the new Beatlemania. The comment sections on Instagram were unbearable. It's like,
why does that upset you? You know, like, why does that upset people? I will never understand. It's a girl who writes most of her stuff on her own, often with collaborators, but she doesn't write stuff with like a whole team of 15
she's
writers.
Old-fashioned. She's very old-fashioned.
She's old-fashioned. She plays guitar. She plays piano. She has a lovely voice. It's not a spectacular voice. I think Beyonce has a spectacular voice. Taylor Swift has a more sort of girl next door voice, but it's beautiful what she does. So how come the hate to me is so stupid and unjustified? Anyway, we digress, Sam.
Yes, it would be nice if Taylor Swift had the kind of critical credence that like Lady Gaga has for no reason. Like, I feel like they're very similar artists, and yet Gaga seems to be an artist because she wears meat, but Taylor Swift is an act because, like, you know, she sings about Romeo and Juliet.
And I mean, Lady Gaga has taken some crazy risks. I mean, you were talking about Joker a little earlier. That's a huge risk, you know. Like, I'm not saying that it could have ruined her or anything like that, but it's gutsy stuff. It's gutsy stuff to take on. So I find her very gutsy.
Going back to Now and Then,
yes,
I've got this cycle. I'll listen to something, I'll love it, I'll over listen to it, and then I start to hate it. That happened with Egypt Station. It happened with McCartney 3, but a year after that, I kind of come back around and double loop myself. So
if something is good, you'll come back to it. If something is weak, then maybe you won't come back to it. But Paul hasn't been weak.
Yeah, like there's half of Egypt Station that I probably won't come back to. I'm not sitting at home going, "Oh, I really need to listen to People Want Peace." But there's so much on that album. Like, Happy With You is an all-time classic. It is Put It There. It is
Hand in Hand.
It is an absolute diamond. It really is. And that happens with all of Paul's newer releases. Like New, people don't particularly like New, but I'm like, no, but you've heard Appreciate, right? You admit that Appreciate is McCartney 2 level genius.
I love the hell out of New and Memory Almost Full might be my favorite 21st
Nod
Century
Your
Paul
Head
album.
is insane.
It's so much fun. It's so much fun. It's got, again, another Led Zeppelin reference. It's definitely got shades of Kashmir in there. Those
Oh,
big strings.
nod it up.
Yeah. And next year we'll be celebrating the 20th of Chaos and Creation, and it's a downer, but what a gorgeous album. Like I'll defend that album to the death. I love Chaos and Creation. The only song on Chaos and Creation which I tend to kind of skip is Promise to You Girl. I just kind of find it's fun,
It's all
but I
right,
don't
and
find it
it's all right.
fits.
Yeah.
I find it doesn't quite fit on the album. But anyway, we're digressing. Has
Certain
nothing to do with
software's
this
one
year's
fair, yeah.
Grammys.
That's a digression within a digression. So I am coming back around to Now and Then. I think the biggest thing Now and Then did was made me realize how awful Real Love is. Like, it really kind of recontextualized that song for me. And a lot of people have come out and said that they don't like Free as a Bird.
Yeah.
I still think Free as a Bird is the best of those by a country mile. It's complete.
I agree with you that Free as a Bird is the best of the three, but I really love Real Love. I was 16 when that came out, and the line, yes, I've been in love before, but in my heart I wanted more, spoke to the 16-year-old in me when it came out. I love Real Love, and I'll also defend Real Love to, well, maybe
fine.
not to the death, but I do love it. But yes, Free as a Bird, I think, is the best of the three. I think it's the most distinctive of the three, and I love it. People say that it's a little bit too Jeff Lynne, blah, blah, blah. It still sounds great. And
What, you mean the guy who made one of the best McCartney albums? Oh, no, sorry.
Yes, I agree. I agree. 100%. 100%.
Oh my gosh, that'd be like complaining that a Ringo album's got too many special guests on it. Like that's the point, you know. Like if you don't like it, whatever.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm kind of a bit cynical about Now and Then. I'm very cynical about the nomination. I do feel like this is just the last gasps of the old guard, as it were. It does feel like they are desperate to have a Beatles headline because it will drum up controversy. It will drum up conversation and engagement on social media sites, because you have old people going, well, it deserved to be, and you have young people going, who's this?
And you know what? This is the first time I think of this, but watch them perform it on the Grammys. I betcha Ringo and Paul are going to do it, because he's been doing it live.
I only found that out the other day. I was like, what? Paul's doing Now and Then live?
Yeah, and it sounds pretty damn good. Sure, you know.
Thanks to Abe. Let's just.
Yes, Abe definitely is helping a hell of a lot. But watch them do it at the Grammys. I bet you they're going to perform it at the Grammys. First of all, neither Paul or Ringo is going to turn down that invitation. There's no way they're going to turn that down if they're invited.
Dave Grohl will probably do it.
And why wouldn't they invite him if they're the Beatles?
Yeah.
The Grammys will want the Beatles on their show. I bet you, this is my hot take, I bet you they're going to do it on this year's Grammys.
Holographic John and George, yes or no?
Peter Jackson, holographic, yeah, maybe. Maybe not holographic, but on the screen behind them. Because I don't think they're gimmicky enough to actually have like ABBA or Elvis type holograms on the stage with them. That video, by the way, can we talk about the video just a little bit? It's too much. I love Peter Jackson. I love everything he's contributed.
It's vomit.
And it's too much. Seeing Ringo on his mic, grabbing is too much. I don't like that video. To me, it takes away from the beauty of the song. It's too much of John doing his silly hello goodbye stuff. It's too much. And some of the heads sometimes are disconnected from their bodies because it's too like AI and whatever. I don't like that music.
It's almost like he was like, Peter Jackson went, so I'm going to be so professional and I'm going to be really good with the documentary. But when it comes to the video, I'm going to be a film student, graduate, just throwing everything in.
It's like he gave himself a wet dream of a video, and it's like, it's not my jam, not at all. The video to Free as a Bird is a freaking masterpiece. Oh. That is a masterpiece bit of filmmaking. And the video to Real Love, sure, it's just a collection of clips, but I find it affecting. I find it grabs me by the feelings. The only thing I love about the Now and Then video, like without hesitation,
Footage of George recording in the 90s?
Yes, the 1994, 1995 footage. That is what I love in that video. And the rest of it, maybe some of the shots of Paul listening to the string section, I also like. It speaks to me as a Paul fanatic. But the rest of it,
I can't believe that Yoko didn't appear as well. I mean, she gave Paul the fucking tapes.
That's a good point. And they've so been pushing the narrative of stop making Yoko out to be the enemy. And I agree with that. Like she's certainly contributed.
Easy. She could just turn the light on at the start or press play at the start and then you never see her again. 2 seconds screen time.
Yeah. Or just one, glimpse of her smiling during the Get Back sessions.
She's in the studio going, with her hands
something. Yeah. You know what? I never thought of that, but you're entirely right, Sam. And I find actually it lacks balls that they didn't include her. It's almost like they were scared that it would rise up some of that hatred again, and so they were like, let's not go there. But they should have. You're right.
Yoko's the dirty secret of the Get Back documentary, because any Beatle fan knows that she was constantly giving suggestions and input, and you might construe that as annoying or intrusive, but it is what happened. And despite the fact that they are trying to rewrite the Yoko narrative, they completely cut her out the dock. Like, there's more like Heather McCartney than fucking Yoko. It's so weird.
You're right. I mean, what they did keep of Yoko in the documentary is her looking bored.
At Twickenham as well. It's all Twickenham. Yeah.
True. Very true.
Oh.
None of her in the bed. Or was that more during the Abbey Road sessions?
I think her and Linda being in the bed is after the car crash.
Right, which would have been more Abbey Road.
Yeah,
yeah, because it happened.
But back to Now and Then.
Yes, back to Now and Then.
It's pretty good. I think, it's got the narrative behind it. It is a good recording. The way that they use the AI technology to rejudge all of this up and all of these elements. And I mean, the most interesting bit is the fact that they used key vocals from like Eleanor Rigby and Because and then they even pitch shifted them to fit. So it's just George going, and then you just put that in, and that's absolutely beautiful. That's fantastic.
Yes. It's done tastefully.
There's so many alternate universes on the diverging paths where Now and Then was a complete shit show and it ruined the legacy of the Beatles.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably the greatest achievement of Now and Then, is that it didn't ruin the Beatle legacy. Like, that sounds so cynical to say, but, you don't have to do a perfect pirouette landing. Just don't stumble. Just don't stumble.
Exactly.
And they didn't. And they didn't
stumble. Yeah, they didn't stumble. You're right.
But complete opposite to you, I feel like I'm going to be listening to Broken Man in a year, and I'm not going to be listening to Now and Then.
I hear you. I think one of the reasons why Now and Then will stay in my rotation is the fact that I have this possessive sort of nature that I'm really happy that there are 3 songs by the Beatles that came out when I was alive. I mean, I was created in 1980 when Coming Up was at the top of the charts, and when Double Fantasy was a couple of months away from being released.
Someone was coming up.
I always the irony that it was #1 in Canada and the States the week I was born on June 23rd. It was #1 on both those charts. I always loved that irony because Paul hadn't had a #1 in, I don't know, I think 3 or 4 years by then. He no #1 hits from either Back to the Egg or London Town. Anyway, I digress again, but I love that Free as a Bird, Real Love, and Now and Then came out in my era of the Beatles. I feel like I have this like whimsical ownership of them. I own them as much as you own them, or as much as any other fan owns them. And I also love that all those really young fans that got into the Beatles during the pandemic, that are in like their teens or early 20s, I love that they have a song now that is their Beatles song. This came out when I was 14, 16, however old they are. this is their song, or at least it's one of their songs. I find that magical, and I think that's what makes me inclined to think I'm still going to be putting it into Beatles playlists once in a while. No, it's not anywhere near as essential as the 62 to 1970 stuff, 100%. But I'm happy that they're there, and I'm happy that they're part of the canon. I'm grateful they are.
It's going to suffer in terms of progeny because it's awful to play solo on acoustic guitar live. It is such a Sergeant Pepper type track where you need a full band to do it. You can't just go jing 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 jing.
But no, but again, that is why it makes so much sense that it is nominated for
best recording
record and not song, because the song is, as you said, I think you said B minus.
Yeah.
I think it is a B minus song. I mean, it's John, and so we love it for that. I think it was a mistake to cut the middle eight.
Oh, really? Oh, that's a hot take. That's a hot take.
I think it was a bit of a mistake because, I mean, John wanted that middle eight. So I kind of question, although, you know what? One of my theories is that maybe Harrison hated that middle eight so much that that's in part what fueled his, like, this is rubbish, you know. So maybe Paul, in order to honor Harrison's distaste of that middle eight. I mean, this is just my theory. Yeah. I'm basing this on, there's been no actual record of what George hated about Now and Then, other than I think he found it dirgy, which it is. But they did make a great record out of it. And that's why this nomination is not unjustified. It's justified in that it's a great record. Would it be nominated if it had been written and recorded by Beatles fans Michael and Bobby from Wichita? No, it would not have been nominated. It would have gotten 663 streams on Spotify and no one would know about it. But it is the Beatles. It is them. It is their voices. It is Paul's bass, guitars, Ringo's drums, and all that. So it's historically interesting that way, and I'm happy it exists. And that they made a great record out of it.
Not to use the dreaded W word, but I think there's a bit of wokeism in removing a physical abuse angle from the song. You know what I mean? Use you and abuse you. Because like every other day on like a Beatles Facebook page, like, run for your life, little girl. How dare they be so violent? And it's like, oh.
I 110% agree with you, Sam. But you know what's one thing that keeps shocking the hell out of me? Why is Paul, and I adore the song, so I'm so happy that he's still doing it. But how come Paul is still doing Getting Better in 2024?
Yeah, I used to be called when I beat her. Yeah.
Yes. I have friends that are not, you know, they don't care about the wokeism and stuff. They're just, you know, if it's a good song, it's a good song. That's all that matters.
But even they are like, ugh.
You know, but even they cringe at that part. They're like, I can't believe that A, this isn't a pop song from the 60s, but B, most importantly, that it's in a Beatles pop song from the 60s. And it's kind of said very casually. Yes, he's talking about, I'm changing my scene and I'm doing the best that I can. Yes, he talks about that's in the past and I'm working on myself. But he still really sort of says, I used to beat her and I kept her apart from the things that she loved. You know, stay in the kitchen, make me dinner, woman.
When are we ever going to hear
there's a violence to that?
There are so many ones like that, like, you know, like Just Be Good to Me by the SOS Band. A song where a woman says, be a side piece and be happy. You're never going to hear that again. Or like, if you can't get the one you want, love the one you're with. Like, you'll never get a pop song like that again. You could never hear Sabrina Carpenter being so defeated. She'd be like, no, you got to get up and dance on it by the pool.
Yes, exactly. You got to do better for yourself. And you're entirely right. But it just surprises me, you know, when Paul could be doing, you know, Fixing a Hole, You Won't See Me, whatever.
Babies in Black. We've never had that live.
Yes, true, yeah. I suspected the reason why we've never gotten well, although you know what, he could probably Peter Jackson it and still have it be a duet with John. Yeah. I mean, I'm just shocked. I mean, Getting Better. When I saw Paul for the first time in 2002, Getting Better was my favorite song of that entire set list.
Mm-hmm.
When they started doing that piercing guitar opening,
Is it
I
on
wept.
the rainbow piano?
It's on back in the U.S.
No, is Paul
Is on what?
is Paul on the rainbow piano for that one, or is he playing guitar?
No, he was on the guitar.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, he doesn't play bass on it. Brian takes the bass, and Paul is on his ding, ding. He's just playing that part on the guitar. And then, at least in 2002, he'd go straight into Let Me Roll It right after. I don't know if that's still the sequencing now, but I'm just shocked that he brought it back because it's got that line in it. And I don't think we should cancel the song. It's one of my top 3 or 4 favorites on Pepper. I love Getting Better, and I always will. But I do find that part really cringy, and I'm shocked that in 2024 he's doing it. I actually went on YouTube when I saw it on the set list. I rushed to YouTube to see if he had
edited, maybe
taken out that verse. I didn't think he would have, but I thought, well, maybe he hasn't, but he hasn't. It's still in there. I beat her and kept her apart from the things that she loved. I'm surprised he's okay with singing that.
It's not like he's like short of other classic Pepper songs for his set list, because he will always do the title track and the reprise. He's got A Day in the Life. His obligatory John cover now is being for the benefit of Mr. Kite, aka look at how good my bass line was that you didn't appreciate 50 years ago. That's why that's in there.
That is the only reason why that's in there, because to me, I don't know about you, maybe you completely disagree with me, but Mr. Kite is not a highlight for me on Pepper. Like, I wouldn't take it out. I'm happy that it's there, and I think it's a production marvel, but I'd much rather, I'm not saying Paul should do them, but I'd much rather Lucy in the Sky, A Day in the Life, but yeah, Pepper is not Lennon's greatest album. I think we can all agree on that.
It is, no, but it's the clear cut-off point when Paul takes over. But John doesn't even have the excuse of being addicted to heroin yet. So it's like,
no,
pull your finger out, man who wrote Imagine. You know what I mean? Oh, you looked at a poster. Oh, you looked at a...
Thank God. Yeah. Thank God for the White Album, though. Thank God for those few weeks in India where he really, maybe not sobered up, but was cleaner than he had been for a long time, and just wrote whatever, those 20, 25 songs he wrote while he was in India. Thank God for that period, because that solidified.
If Pepper or India had been John's idea, completely different story. John writes 15 songs for Pepper. Right.
You're right. Good point.
Oh, Paul, is it your idea? Well, I don't like giving you any credit for anything, even though you're the driving force behind my band. Max, overall, how do you feel about the Grammys this year? Do you think they've knocked it out of the park?
I don't know about knocked it out of the park. As I mentioned, there are so many. Like, I'm surprised that Casey Musgraves is only there for Best Country Album. I think it's a worthwhile nominee for Album of the Year, period. I'm disappointed Vampire Weekend got no nominations. I'm disappointed Ryan Adams didn't get any nominations. He released 4 albums this year, didn't get a single freaking nomination. So I have plenty of disappointments. And
sin of omission.
Yes. However, I've always said, and I think you agree with me 100% on this, the Grammys are not a science. They're not an exact science. They're a popularity contest.
It's Rotten Tomatoes.
Teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a team of people and tastemakers or wannabe tastemakers.
And marketers and media personalities.
Yes, they get together and whatever. However, that cynicism tossed aside, I do think that about 80% of all the nominees that I've checked out are absolutely worth your time, our time. So that's what I take it as. I don't care who wins. I will look at who wins the following day. I will. I'll be curious to know. But I just think that it's a great source of, hey, you don't know about idols? okay, I don't know about them either. Let's go and check them out. That's what I think is great about the Grammys, and that's what I will continue to say, till my death. Same thing with the Oscars, they'll make you notice pieces of art that probably slip by you for whatever reason because you're uninterested or because you have other things that you're passionate about, and you can't listen to everything or see everything. So it's just a, hey, have you heard of this? There are people, Sam, who haven't heard of St. Vincent until these nominations. I'm sure there are some out there, and there are probably some people that never took 4 minutes out of their lives to go listen to Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter that now have, and they're like, okay, it's pretty good. It's not my cup of tea, but it's pretty good. So that's what I think is great about these nominations, and that's what I think they're there for, to sort of wake us up and to make us listen to things that maybe otherwise we would have just gone like, oh, that's not aimed at me, so I'm not gonna give it the time of day.
Whilst it is embarrassing to say that I may have gotten into Pearl Jam through their 2025 Grammy nomination rather than like their entire output, I do agree with you on that. Like Chapel Roan, really glad that I know about her now. I'm definitely going to go and check out the rest of her discography, and I'm definitely going to use my fandom of her as a performative measure when talking to potential sexual mates as well. I like Chapel Roan. I'm hip.
Yep.
But yeah, over.
I really do hope that Good Luck Babe wins Record of the Year, Pop Record of the Year. I will be thrilled if it wins. I think I don't know, it grabs me, You'd have to stop the world just to stop the feeling. I think that's such a great line, and I don't know. I think it's a fantastic pop record.
I actually checked out the chords earlier. It's all like A and D and E minor. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my god, I'm gonna play this. Yeah, wicked.
Yeah, and I've seen boomers. I hate calling them boomers, but I've seen older guys pick it out on guitar and sing it with a more folk approach, and it sounds beautiful. It's a good song and it's a great record. So, yes, put her in the spotlight. She deserves it. She's not a hack, and she's not a fabricated by the industry thing. At least not to my ears.
I mean, in all fairness, she did support Olivia Rodrigo last year, which is like, oh, you supported the last Grammy, darling, big industry plant
There
or
you
whatever.
go.
Like, fair enough, I'm sure there'd
Nothing
be
wrong with that.
I mean, I'm sure there'd be other low-key 70s bands that I'd know about if Wings had more opening acts,
Yes.
But that just wasn't.
Little parentheses, there's a Montreal singer-songwriter by the name of Nanette Workman who was asked personally by Paul to be the opening act on the Wings Over America tour in '76. She said yes to Paul, and her manager called Paul's people 2 or 3 days later and said, no, we don't, 2 weeks or 2 or 3 weeks, whatever deadline, it was a very short term thing. He felt they didn't have the time to prepare adequately and put together a band that was going to be able to support her in an arena/stadium setting. And so, and in any interview or documentary with Nanette Workman, who's a local legend here, she had a #1 hit with a French version of Lady Marmalade, which of course she didn't write, but it was a #1 hit here in Quebec and Canada. And anyway, she to this day says that is the greatest regret of her life. And one last thing about her, she is the backing vocal on Honky Tonk Women by the Stones. That anyway, that's her that's doing the high part, the high female part. So she was in the zeitgeist. She was friends with Mick. Paul was a big fan of her. She was a gorgeous woman as well, which I'm sure made her popular with those dudes as well. But I mean, Paul literally said to her, hey, come and be my opening act on this big Wings tour. And her manager stepped in without her consent and said, Nanette's not going to be ready for this. It's too big a deal. Tragic. Anyway.
If she had a time machine, I don't think she's going back to kill Hitler. You know what I mean?
No. She's going back to call Paul and say, I just fired my manager. because wouldn't you rather em- embarrass yourself is too strong a word, but wouldn't you rather
Take a
kind of
chance.
fail than not do it? Like, it
To
blows my
quote,
mind every time I think about it.
Quote the SOS band, "Just be good to me. I'd rather have a piece of you than have all of nothing."
Yes,
So
absolutely.
just be good to
Absolutely.
me, Paul. Just be good to me.
And plus, like, history rarely takes notice or remembers opening acts anyway. So I can't see how it could have destroyed her. I think it would have given her huge visibility, maybe an American record contract. Anyway, it's a sad story. It's a very sad story.
There was an opening act, I think, for the '73 UK tour.
Oh, and I read the McCartney, that book
Legacy.
there. Yes. Oh, God, what a great book. Can't wait for volume 2. But yeah, I don't remember an opening act. There might have been, though. Yeah, for sure.
Alan Coslin and Adrian Sinclair are such
Yes.
darlings because
Yes.
one of them sent me a message saying, "So Sam, how come you haven't talked about our book, your Paul McCartney podcast?" I went,
That's
"Because-"
awesome.
They went, "Because your publisher never sent me a copy." And they went, "They didn't!" And then, like, literally the next day, it was on my doorstep. It was insane.
That's awesome. It's honestly, I know it's not a Beatles book because it's a Paul solo book, but I think
It's
it's
the best
my
Beatles
favorite.
book.
Oh man, I mean, I adore Tune In, and I'm super grateful for Mark Lewison, not taking anything away from him, but I struggled through that book. Whereas the McCartney Legacy, I was actually taking hours of my day to read. I think it took me 2 weeks to read, and when I got it in the mail, I thought, "Oh, Max, you're not even going to read this. It's too big. You're going to get discouraged." I did not get discouraged. I ravaged that book.
It's
What
a
great
golden
book.
age of Paul specific
Oh,
texts.
yes.
Because
Yes, and volume 2 is going to be even greater because it's post Band on the Run's release, and it's Wings Over America. Oh God, I cannot wait for volume 2. December something.
Yeah, we've also got Luca Perazzi's books as
Yes.
well. They're going to
Yes.
be covering the 80s onwards as well, his part 2. And then I'm also going to be talking to a guy next week, J.R. Moores, who's got Paul McCartney in the 90s. Music is Ideas, yeah. Fantastic book.
We're lucky to have these really great writers and scholars and researchers making these books because, it's that extra insight that we couldn't get anywhere else.
Of course.
And we certainly wouldn't get that kind of insight from Paul. God bless him.
Definitely not. Also, huge shout out to the paulmccartneyproject.com as well.
Yes. What a fantastic site.
One
that
guy.
is. Indeed.
One guy. Yeah.
Yes. What I love about that website is you can tap in, you can, type in any year. Like I recently typed in 1985 because I thought to myself, did Paul do anything in 1985? And sure enough, Live Aid, of course. How could I forget that? And he did this and he
Phil
did
Ramone
that.
sessions
Spies
year,
Like Us.
maybe,
I believe so.
Yeah.
And Spies Like Us. So like that site has everything. Yeah, God bless the Paul McCartney Project. Indeed.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have been discussing the 2025 Grammy nominations for Best Rock Record. I think we've covered it sufficiently. I think we've ticked all the boxes.
I think so, and we've covered a multitude of other topics as we're prone to do.
Max, thank you so much for coming on today. I couldn't have done this without you. And thank you for making me look like the old man yelling at the cloud out of us too as well.
Well, I'm a huge Paul or Nothing fan, and I'm a huge fan of you as a person, Sam, so it's a pleasure to do this.
No, and obviously I've had a bit of a hiatus. A hiatus has been so long that even your episode still hasn't come out yet, but I knew that if I was going to pick myself back up and get back on the horse, get back on the wagon, I needed some really dependable players to come on with me. I needed my Elephant's Memory Band. I need my Denny Lane, and that is your So thank you so much. Everyone, you've been listening to Paul or Nothing. We've been discussing the Beatles versus modern rock, Grammy for Best Rock Performance. I've been your host, Sam Wiles. My guest today has been Max Comeau. All of his links down below. Go and check out his music. Go and check out his Paul McCartney covers album. It's absolutely brilliant. Everyone, this has been Paul or Nothing. Peace and love. Peace and love. No more autographs.
Peace and love.
Play us out, Jenny.